One. Brian, how are you?
Doing well. How you doing?
Dude, I cannot explain to you how honored I am that you would take the time out of your day to sit down with me today and chat for a little bit.
I'm honored myself for anybody that wants to chat with me on a Monday afternoon.
Well, you were actually just in my town in the beautiful Scranton, Pennsylvania. I think it was like 2 weeks ago.
Had so much fun
You were
there.
playing at a Montage, and I think, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, but I think you hit up one of the bars afterwards and did like an undercover karaoke.
No idea what you're talking about.
Can you tell me what bar
How
that
could it be
was?
undercover if I'm going to give away my cover?
All right, all right. I'm
I
sorry.
don't know
I'm
what you're
sorry.
talking about.
I'm
Though some of
sorry.
the guys went down to a place called Poor Richard's.
Poor Richards. Okay,
Uh, I don't know anything about that. In
you
fact, I
weren't there.
promised my people that I would never ever do that. Go sing karaoke.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that never happened.
All right, I did
Sorry.
it. I don't care. I did it. I
That's a
enjoy
lot of
doing
fun.
it. It's a
That's a lot
lot
of
of
fun,
fun
right?
to do.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, and it's only fun if people don't know who I am. Like I can't if I go into a place and everybody recognizes me or if the who's ever in charge, what are they called? Are they DJs? I don't even know. I don't want to insult a guy that's running karaoke by calling him the wrong thing, but if they know who I am, then it's no fun.
Right.
What's the fun in that? Because they'll come and they'll say, "Hey, we know who you are. Will you do karaoke?" And then it's a whole different thing. But if I can go in there and not let people know who I am and do it, then I do whatever I want. And usually I want to do the freshman, and nobody ever recognizes me, which is great. It's funny to me. If it makes me laugh and makes my bandmates laugh, which it did, then it's worth it.
I mean, I don't know how people wouldn't hear you sing and then kind of be like, "Wow, this guy's really killing it." Maybe I'll look up and at least an image of who the lead singer of the Verve Pipe is. And I didn't mention that yet, but I'm joined by Brian Vander Ark from the Verve Pipe, one of my favorite bands growing up in the mid '90s. But yeah, I would definitely at least be like, "Wow, this guy's really killing it." Maybe I should see if this is him.
Would you though?
I
Because
would. I
uh,
would.
because I've been to karaoke before where somebody was doing something and they sat and they had the impression down and the whole thing, and I never even thought to pick up my phone and look it up to see if it was that person. So it's like if I go out and I'm gonna go busking or something, if I'm gonna go in the subway and I'm gonna be singing the freshman with my guitar out with looking for change, which I'm gonna do very soon for your viewers and listeners. And I would be shocked if anybody would know who I was because you would never expect me to be there. Who's going to expect me to be at Poor Richards in Scranton? Even though we did play a show there with the Spin Doctors in Scranton that day. Actually, I wish I would have got those guys to come down and do their song too. That would have been fun.
That would have been fun. That was a bar. I saw the imagery around you, and I was like, I've never been in that bar before, so I couldn't. I had to do some internet sleuthing to find
They're
out.
they're good people there. We went there fairly early, and then they didn't have karaoke until 8 or something. So we were there from 5 until 8, drinking and eating burgers and the whole thing at the bowling alley there, and waiting for karaoke just so we could get up there and be the first 4 or 5 that went up. And I think 3 of our guys went up there and did something. So it's pretty fun.
Yeah. So I mean, you played the show at Montage a few weeks ago. Was that one of the first few shows that kind of you played after the pandemic, or have you guys been touring a bit?
Uh No, we played quite a few shows since the pandemic. I mean,
Yeah.
we've lost 50 some gigs because we play so often, but during the pandemic, but the first opportunity to go back out, we went out. I think we went to in Omaha in mid 2020. So that was like right in the mix where it was starting to come down before the variants
Hmm.
came in. So we got a show in there, and then we got a bunch of shows during the variant still. So we kept pretty busy. We
That's
just
good.
we just first of all, we're all vaccinated and we encourage people to get vaccinated and mask up and the whole thing. And so when we did that and then we were masked until we performed, I felt like we're doing all of the things that we need to do. If people want to come in and they want to wear masks, a lot of these shows were masked. That's up to the club, that kind of thing. But I felt like we were responsible in how we approached it and had the opportunity to play. I'm going to take the opportunity to play. It's my favorite thing.
Yeah, and the Verve Pipe, not to be confused with the Verve, who
Oh, they're
you
confused every day. What do you mean not to be confused?
not to be confused.
Yeah,
No, that's what I'm
I
saying
wish. That would be great.
though. What-
I mean, it's from your mouth to God's ear, John. I mean, no, every single day I get tweeted about or something. I get
that's
tagged in the wrong thing. It's fun
who
though.
who
That's
was
fun
your,
too. I get a lot of mileage out of that too. In
yeah,
fact, I'm gonna do karaoke. I'm gonna do Bittersweet Symphony. That's gotta happen
there you go.
for sure.
Who was around first, the Verve or the Verve Pipe?
I mean, we can Wikipedia it, but and find out. But it was like I know what happened, and I know what happened to me, or in our situation with the band was we hadn't had a name yet. It was 1992, August of '92. We didn't have a name. We had the album done, and we were like, we need a name. Let's pick a name. And so we all set up. We're drinking, and our guitarist at that time said, "Let's call it the Verve Pipe." And that's it. Final answer. And we were like, what does that even mean? Ridiculous, you know, but we were drunk and tired and it was like, all right. And so we said the Verve Pipe, approved of the artwork the next day, let it go. And then 3 weeks later, we look in we used to love like Q magazine and I think it's NME. What are these other English magazines back in the day? We'd read these English magazines because we were huge Brit pop fans and and we saw this band, The Verve, and we're like, oh, wait a minute, The Verve, and like, well, what? They've already had an album out, and they had a new album coming out called The Storm in Heaven, I think, at that time. And so we said, well, what would the chances be that our band would make it and their band in England would make it and that our paths would ever cross? It just seemed like it's so unsurmountable, whichever it is.
Yeah,
You decide, you can edit that out.
insurmountable. I think is
Don't edit it out. I don't mind looking stupid. So we let it go. And then our hit songs were within months of each other. It was so confusing. Like, I remember Cake and Cake Like. I remember those two bands were out at the same time. Cake Like wasn't nearly as successful as Cake, but, you know, there was Black Crows, Counting Crows, Sheryl Crow. I mean, all the Crow thing. And there was a little bit confusion in the beginning of that, but really it was nothing like an original word like verve, which not a lot of people have used. That's why it's so confusing. Still confusing today. I mean, the Verve got sued in the initial because they were called Verve, and they had to add the to Verve because Verve Records sued them, which is a jazz label. So they've been through. Besides that and getting sued by the Stones, they've been through much more than we have, so we're fine. You know, we ended up pretty unscathed in that whole thing. So
yeah. And what was it like? You mentioned a lot of these band names, Counting Crow, Sheryl Crow, but you know, you talk about the Jim Blossoms, Beck, you know, Soundgarden, Tonic, Smashing Pumpkins. What was it like to be in the mix of all those names, like kind of in the same time?
amazing time for music for songwriters, I think. Sheryl Crow, great songwriter. Uh, Black Crows, great songwriters. You know, Counting Crows. I mean, Adam's a terrific songwriter. You know,
Mhm.
so we're in a period of time where you know that they're writing their own songs, which is what I lament today with today's music. You don't know who's writing what and if they're buying courses and all this stuff that people do. So we knew who we were back then, and we knew who the other bands were, that they were authentic and they were songwriters. And it was always more interesting to go to a party or play a festival where you got to meet these people who wrote these great songs and talk about the process and that kind of thing. And so it was a terrific time. I mean, I think we were the last bastion in the late 90s of the bands that you could be sure were bands that wrote their own songs. And it was a great class of 97, 96, 97, 98, 90. yeah, up to 98, I think were really good classes of rock and roll, of alternative modern rock and roll bands. So it was fantastic. You know, the festivals, a lot of radio festivals, super popular. Then but they would put, you know, Skinny Puppy with Duncan Sheik on the same bill, you know. It's just like, so you go up there and you take a chance on, you know, getting pennies whipped at your face, you know, because the people from, you know, there to see, you know, Prong didn't, you know, want to see Tonic, you know.
Right.
So the festivals themselves always sucked, but the best part about it was backstage and getting to go to people's buses and party and say hey and like hang out and that kind of thing. So that was a great period of time for us.
It was great. I think, the 90s were it just had some great music in general.
I
I
think
was
so. It was a good, really good generation or a really good decade of music. The '90s, past. I mean, when Nirvana broke, that's when things really like were just amazing. If you look back on it now in hindsight, because right before then, I felt like it was pretty bad. And there were some great albums here and there, you know, like U2 had Octoon Baby that came out. The Pixies had Doolittle, which I listened to incessantly. Um, but overall, like what was popular, like I used to stock shelves for a company when I go to Walmart and I go to Kmart and I would stock music on the shelves in 1990, 91. And it was Vanilla Ice and it was Paula Abdul and it was Milli Vanilli and they would sell out so quickly that I'd go in there every other day to these places and I'd have to fill up the bins and then I'd have to stack them up to the ceiling of extra Vanilla Ice, knowing that in 2 days I would come back and have to do it all again. Talk about disheartening to a musician, you know, to just go, oh my God, when is this shit going to end? You know, New Kids on the Block and all this other stuff that I just hated back then. Now I like New Kids on the Block for some reason. You know, I don't want to say anything too bad about them. But for the most part, you know, it was really disheartening to be in that early '90s, you know, time of music until, like I said, Nirvana broke, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, when it all came to a head. And I wasn't a big fan of the hair bands either, you know. So when that whole regime switched over and it was modern rock, alternative rock, I was like, finally, these people are playing the music that I love, you know. And then we got our shot. That's the only way we got our shot.
And what was that like? I mean, I don't know how old you were. I feel badly I didn't look it up.
I was mid 30s, or not mid 30s. I was 30.
When the Freshman hit?
No, I was 30. Yeah, I was 32 when it hit. I think 32 when it finally hit, like when it was on the top of the charts. But yeah, I wasn't. Yeah, I had a long haul. You know, I was in the army, out of the military. I was in the military for 4 years before, you know, out of high school, and then worked day jobs and played in different bands, and was a lounge singer for a while at the Holiday Inn bars. You know, just trying to figure out what to do, and so it took me a long time to get the bands together and actually do something. I remember my 30th birthday was going to quit. I'm going to quit on my 30th birthday. I was. And I told my girlfriend at the time that she was a punk, by the way. And I told her at the time, uh, punk in a good way.
Sure.
I said, I'm going to quit. And she, on my 30th birthday, because I got to, you know, do something with my life, you know. And for my 30th birthday, I was so depressed. She bought me a 4-track recorder. I was like, oh my God, this is like the greatest woman ever, you know. And I started recording the demos and stuff, and she kept me at it because of that. So I'll never forget that.
That's awesome. So yeah, I mean, how did the music happen? If you were ready to quit, you were in the army, like was music always something you wanted to do? And
Yeah, songwriting was what I wanted to do. You know, I mean, I grew up listening to the '70s songwriters, the Harry Chapins and James Taylors and Cat Stevens and Nick Drake and all that really good acoustic stuff, finger picking stuff, because I knew how to finger pick. That's what I did at the Holiday Inn bars. I'd finger pick. So, and then you play Dust in the Wind and all these other finger picking songs. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So I wanted to be a songwriter, and I just kept writing and writing and writing and writing. I got my big break, first big break with Willie Nelson. That was 1990. I met Willie. He asked me. I gave him a demo tape. He said he'd listen to it, and he did. And then he called me and asked me to play at Farm Aid 4. That was in 1990. So I thought I had a shot as a songwriter. And so I played Farm Aid 4, and I got to meet Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and Neil Young and Lou Reed and all these other icons who were in posters in my bedroom. And that gave me the inspiration to keep writing, keep writing, keep writing. But when I turned 30, it was like, okay, I gave it 4 years of this, gave it a real shot. That was when I was 26. So yeah, and that's it. It's going to be it. If I can't do it in 4 years after getting on stage with Willie Nelson, then something's wrong. This is not what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. So the Freshman hits, the album Villains, which is I think an incredible album front to back, really. I mean, the Freshman, obviously, Cup of Tea, Villains, Ominous Man, all great songs. I mean, like, what happens next? You're on tour, all these other bands. Like, what's going through your head?
Well, I mean, we had already established ourselves pretty well before that. 92, 93, 94 were great years for us, or 93 and 94, really. We were selling out the theaters locally, so 2,000 people at a theater show. We were selling albums like crazy without a label. And so it all felt like it was going the right way, you know. And I felt like, well, we can do this without a label because we had like 6 or 7 labels come and pass on us, including RCA, who ended up signing us. So we had already felt like we had the machine going. We didn't really need a label, which was, very naive in hindsight because we did need the label in the end. We couldn't have had a huge hit song like that. So it kind of felt like everything that was happening was not a huge shock. It was like, okay, well, that makes sense. That makes sense. They want this to be a single. Photograph, we wrote it to be a single. We felt like it was a single. Photograph was our first single, and it was a top 10. And then we were like, okay, Cup of Tea is next. And we just thought, okay, Cup of Tea is great. People love it on the record. They keep saying they love it. So they're going to release that. And it tanked. It was a single and it tanked. And then they were going to put a nail, the death nail in the death nail in the coffin. And I'm like, wait, what? And then they said, we're going to jump to the Freshmen instead of doing Reverend Girl, I think was another one. And Ominous Man was another single. We're going to jump to the Freshmen because we think that's the only one that you have left. And I was like, okay. And they jumped to the Freshmen and it exploded. I mean, so, we really didn't have any idea that it wouldn't happen. In hindsight, you look at it and you go, okay, of the thousands of bands that were signed in that time, tens of thousands of bands, how many actually made it? We didn't think of that. Knowing that now, what your chances are so slim, I'm very thankful. And I'm thankful that I didn't know anything about it because that would have drove me crazy. So
Yeah. And I mean, like, what was it like trying to follow that up? Like, I know you
uh,
had one in '99 that came out, and then I think like 2001, you had Underneath came out, which I think had songs on it that you know, were ready for radio hits, and I think that was like slightly after 9/11, so that kind of put a
yeah.
halt on the whole thing. So what was it like trying to move
Well,
past?
it was hard because, right away, well, initially following the Freshman up with another song, I think they went with Villains. And, we had Dean Carr do the video, who's a great video director, and we had all the push and everything. And then Villains didn't really do anything because all the radio stations kept saying, we're still playing the Freshman. We can't play another Verve Pipe song. And this was, 6 months later, almost a year later. And they're still playing the Freshman. Well, that's a really good problem to have. I realize now, but back then it's like, oh my God, stop playing the fucking Freshman, please play Villains. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? We need another hit song here. And so then it was like, all right, well, we're going to go home, take a break, and we're going to write. And then we wrote a song called Hero and a bunch of other songs for that second record that I thought was a great record. But we took a year and a half to record the album. And that hurt us. That was our fault because we wanted to get it perfect. And then we went in and we had a bunch of hit songs that we thought, well, this is all gold. I mean, RCA was like, you got 5 hit singles on this record called Underneath. And then they release it and it's released, a few short days after 9/11. And you go, well, nobody bought anything. Then you couldn't promote anything. And so it was just the way it played out, which is, listen, I've still got a good life in music, and I'm really proud of those records. There's nothing out. I haven't put anything out that I'm not proud of, which a lot of people can't say. So it ended up being fine.
yeah. I think people, obviously, you're not gonna make a hit record like Villains and then try and put out garbage afterwards, right? I mean, not everyone may like it or enjoy it and appreciate it as much as the songs on Villains and Underneath, but um, it's always a it's not fair to artists, I think, when they want to try and to either explore different options or create new sounds. Everyone wants to, I want you to sound like the Freshmen. I want you to do that
Well,
again.
yeah, I mean, real songwriters, I think real songwriters, the ones that don't just write the hits, the ones where it's, where they're trying to be artists and they're trying to take the parts of the crowd, the ones in the crowd that care about the songs and care about your artistry. Those are the people that you want to go along with you, and you try different things. And if I was to write the Freshmen again, and there are plenty of bands that keep writing the same song over and over and have huge success. It's not about the success. It's not about it's not about the riches and the whole thing. Riches are nice, but my kids get to go to a nice school. We live in a nice house in a nice neighborhood. We're perfectly happy the way things are.
Yeah.
Had I continued to write the same hit song over and over and over, and this is not an excuse, it would just be so boring to me. I want to do something different. I've always wanted to do something different. That's why I dip into acting or writing, and I dip into other things. I mean, I enjoy that kind of thing. It doing the same thing over and over just doesn't sit well with me. It's boring. I
Yeah.
don't want to be bored.
You do acting?
Yeah, well, I mean, I do. I've been in a few things, few major things, but small parts. But just I do it for fun. I don't
Sure.
do it to get paid, and I do it to be art creative. And a lot of times I'm in friends' movies, and I write movies for my friends to star in and that kind of thing. And we've done that. We've won some festival stuff, and that's super fun to me. It's being creative and having a good time doing it.
Yeah, with you saying that, being creative, I know you said earlier that, the pandemic didn't affect you guys too much. You kind of did the right things at the right time, masks, all that kind of stuff. But when that first happened and, you're canceling shows every day, I talked to a lot of musicians. And one thing I was always worried about was, you know, what if they can no longer be creative? And that's who they are. It's what they do. And like their whole lives are being turned upside down.
Well, there's a difference between being creative and creative expression. Okay, so I equivalate uh, creative expression with live performance. Okay, I could play the Freshman. I can, we can put on a show doing the Freshman. I can do it a cappella. I can do it with just the acoustic guitar. I can do it with a full band. I can do it with our drummer on congos or something. That's creative expression. Being creative is a whole different thing. That's what I try to teach my kids. Do something creative every single day. Draw something, doodle something, paint something, write something, and I encourage everyone to do that because it opens up and it exercises the right side of your brain, which is the creative side. It helps in creative thinking and the whole thing. So being creative is important. Whether anybody sees it or hears it doesn't really matter if you're being creative, if you're massaging that right side of your brain. I enjoy creative expression. I love to perform. I love to perform with the Verve Pipe more than I love to perform solo because I like the camaraderie of the band and I like to play off other players and like do things to each other to excite each other, other members. That's creative expression. That's what I missed during the pandemic. I didn't stop being creative. I definitely was more creative and wrote another album. We wrote a whole album during the pandemic. So that's the universe's time for me. That was the universe's time that said, okay, the pandemic happened. You got 50 shows that are canceled. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to write an album. And that's what we did. So, why it happened, who knows? But, we had to make the best of it. And we did by being creative.
Yeah, I like the way you kind of differentiated that because you're right. You can a lot of bands still they made it through by being creative. They just the creative expression was not accessible at the time. But
Right.
yeah, just I mean, did you ever think we'd ever see anything like that?
No, and I saw Contagion.
I was
I'm a big
watching those movies.
Soderbergh fan. Steven Soderbergh. Is it Soderbergh? Yeah, Soderbergh, whatever, however you say it. Yeah, I was a big fan, so I saw that and I was like, It's not gonna happen, but what if it did, And that was that movie was 7 or 8 years ago, and I saw that awful movie with Dustin Hoffman, the same thing, The Airborne. What was that movie called?
Outbreak.
Outbreak. Terrible movie, even terrible acting. But I was like, "Ah, come on," you
Yeah.
know? And no, you just think about 4 years ago when you go through an airport and you see somebody, usually it was somebody, uh, somebody from the East wearing a mask, just one person, you go, "Oh, that's kinda weird," you know? That was just 3, 4 years ago, where now, think about the babies that were born 3 years ago, they don't know a life without people wearing masks. It's like a whole that's the whole weird thing. That's the whole thing that's, like, super trippy about it, is that 3 years ago, I guess it would be 3 years ago, I never would have thought I'd be walking around and people would have masks on. I mean, what if you were in a coma the year before or 3 months before the pandemic and woke up 6 months into it and you go, "What my God, what is going on?" What happened? That was the odd thing to me. But
Yeah, I mean, the world changed overnight. It was really crazy. I just the day before the world shut down, I was scheduled to go to Boston and haven't been back since. I just got back yesterday from my trip, my annual trip with the guys. And yeah, it's an amazing thing with it's weird, we're able to see people's faces now. Some people are wearing masks walking down the street outside, which I always think is kind of weird.
yeah,
Um, especially being outside, it's
I still do it. I do it. I do it where I wear them outside just for I mean, the nice thing about this is that well, I mean, I'm in Grand Rapids. So Grand Rapids, Michigan is it's a couple 100,000 people. It's smaller than Austin. It's like a Des Moines,
Mhm.
maybe about like that size. And second biggest city in Michigan. But I'm pretty popular, and people know I live here, and a lot of people know where I live.
Sure.
So it's nice to go out with some anonymity. Sometimes when I'm with my kids or anything, I walk around outside with a mask on. I'm 6'5", so it's kind of hard. But if I wear a ball cap and sunglasses and a mask, and people don't come up. Sometimes I like to be recognized, and sometimes I like to chat to people, and sometimes I just want to do my own thing. So
Sure.
it's nice to have that option to be able to put a mask on and cover up,
Yeah.
cover up my face.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's definitely a different situation for you and the size of the
You're
city
not
too.
famous
But
in your town, John?
no, no. I mean, listen, I have a name for myself, but no one is like trying to hang out with me. You know what I'm saying? I don't get on stages and sing. Well, I've done karaoke before, very poorly, usually
Yeah.
after a few drinks. But
Hey,
no
sing with me.
one's hanging out with me. No one wants to
Yeah.
hang out with me.
Shut up.
But no, but I mean, thank you for doing this. It really means a lot to me. And I started this podcast as a way to. I used to host a radio show,
Mm,
and it kind of the station flipped, so they canceled the show, and it really focused on like local musicians.
mhm,
Um, and I wanted to create or continue to be able to have them have a place for them to talk about their music and things like that. So when I'm able to talk to people like you, and I've talked to like Tantric and guys from Breaking Benjamin and all that kind of stuff, I think it kind of just gives a little bit of validation to what I'm doing, and maybe
sure.
people see or hear that like, oh, we had the guy from the Verve Pipe on, like this must be legit. So I think it also helps expose the other artists who aren't at your level. So I mean, just thank you so much for
Sure,
doing
of
this. And
course. Yeah. I mean, this
um,
is your way of being creative. I mean, come on.
you know what? People keep saying that because like I always I always say I'm not a creative person. I really am
You
not.
don't feel
But
like this is creative?
well, when I say that, people are like, "What do you think you're doing right now?" And it's
Yeah,
like, "Okay,
creating content.
yeah, I get it. I get it.
It's the definition of being
Mm,
creative.
yeah,
You're creating something, you know.
well,
You're asking questions. I mean,
yeah. Thank you."
so
But yeah, I mean, when the freshman came out, I mean, I was a freshman in high school, so it's like that's it's always cool to because obviously the song had nothing to do with being a freshman in high school, right?
right.
Um,
That would
but that's
be
how.
well, that's a whole other song.
Right. Well, but that's to me at the time it was like relatable in that sense. So I think in music is it's so cool when people hear things and they relate to them in different ways. And a lot of times people and musicians don't want to talk about what the song means because they want people to be able to kind of hear it how they want to.
Sure.
Um, but
There's a reason
yes,
for that, though.
Yeah.
Real briefly, I know you're trying to wrap up, but really briefly, there's a reason for that because once you put a song out there, I've always believed once somebody else hears your song, that song belongs to them now.
Hmm.
You know, they have their own idea what it's about, and I've had people come up to me and ask me what it's about, and I'll tell them what it's about, and they go, no, 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 that's not what it's about. And you go, okay, well, I mean, I wrote the fucking song, but okay, you tell me what it's about. That's why. It's because let people take what they want from a song, and a lot of times there's misheard lyrics and whatever. Nobody cares. They don't care because the song means something to them. For me, it means nostalgia for those people. It means they get to get transported back to 1997. Where were they? You know, who were they with when they saw it live, if they saw it live, or how many times they blasted it going out to the bar or whatever, that kind of thing. But people have their own idea of what the song's about. I wouldn't argue with them, you know. Anyway,
Yeah.
but I was just saying that's a reason why we, as songwriters, you let people keep it open for interpretation.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that I didn't dig too deep into it back then because obviously it's a powerful song, and well, if you want to talk about it, you can. I'm not trying to wrap things up. For me, I'm doing this for you.
No, I appreciate
I'm
that.
sure you don't
Thank
want to be here all day. I could talk to you all day if you wanted to, but yeah, I mean, it's a powerful song.
Yeah, I mean it's more powerful than there's more weight to it than what most people knew when it came out, you know. But it was a very dark and disturbed subject matter. And the record label didn't put it out there that it was about abortion and suicide, and people were singing at the top of their lungs and arm in arm, and like they were a bunch of drunken sailors singing, and like nobody ever really thought they had to go any deeper. Now that you get older and you go, oh yeah, this song, and then you listen to the words and you go, oh my god. But so many people go, holy shit, I had no idea this song was as dark, as it was, while we were, like I said, singing at the top of our lungs. But that's one of the things that comes with age, maturity. You start to analyze things more, and you say I think that's why the lyrics are being analyzed more. I think the Boston Globe just did an article on that time when there were songs about abortion on the radio for the first time. Brick by Ben Folds was a song about abortion. He touched in the same area I did. But nobody really wanted to talk about it back then, which I don't blame them. Music is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be, you're supposed to escape. That's why we don't talk about politics on stage and this kind of thing. People want to go there to escape, so you go escape and escape with us. Awesome. We always have a good time. I think we always put on a good show for them. And if part of that show, if during that show I were to stop and tell the story of what the song's about, I think that it would be a downer. It'd be a
Hmm.
bummer in the show. I'll say a few words about how I wrote it, and this song means this, and thank you so much for the support and that kind of thing, and play the song. It's a whole different thing if I'm going to get on my soapbox and talk about, the right to choose or, whatever, so we keep that for people to decide on their own, you know.
Yeah, I like that you
The
said that
music
about
might.
politics and things because I don't, like you said, it's for entertainment. People go to shows and they listen to music to escape the politics and the bullshit, and
Yeah.
I don't like it when bands use their voice for political meetings. I don't know. It's just you have
Well,
that
live
right.
for me, I have a problem. I don't have a problem outside of playing a show and doing it. If I'm going
Sure.
to post something, if I'm going to tweet something or whatever, and it's political, I have no problem with doing that. And
Right.
I've been called out many times for that, but it doesn't matter. I mean, I pay my taxes and I have a right to have a voice. I vote, so I do have a voice.
Absolutely.
However, on stage, my voice is for singing. My voice isn't for politics. And
Right.
that's just how I feel about it. So,
And I got a comment on your hair. It's
oh
beautiful.
my God, is it bad
No,
today?
it's
Jeez,
so
why
good.
would you even point it
I
out
know
then if
it's
it's
so
bad?
good. I'm like when I saw you at
Oh,
Montage, I'm like this guy. Like I mean, I've seen you online or whatever. I think you try to embarrass your children on
how
TikTok and
much
things.
how much work is put into that?
Yeah. How much?
Absolutely nothing.
No, you just you wake up that way.
Actually, I'm fortunate. I got a great hair person. I get my hair cut once a month, and she does a great job. And this is what it is. I might wash it once every 3 days. put a little product in it, and go.
It's so good.
Thanks. I'm lucky. I got a long line of good hair in my family. Knock on wood. My grandfather had a full head of hair when he died at 82 years old or whatever, and his hair looked great. Everybody commented when he was laying in the casket, "Look at his hair. It's always looked good."
That's funny.
That's all I can ask for from people to me.
Yeah,
Wow, his hair still looks good.
it does. You look like you look better now, and I'm happily married to a woman.
I'm happily married to a woman too.
Yeah, but I mean, you've aged very well. Is what I'm getting
I
at.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks, John.
for what it's worth.
I don't know what you looked like before, so I can't comment.
I don't know.
Re-comment for you.
I was probably 75 pounds skinnier back when the Freshmen came out.
That's funny.
Didn't have the facial hair.
Yeah.
Had a better hairline than I do now. I'm very fortunate. I still have hair. I'm not. I mean, it's definitely racing back, but I'm
How
I'm
old of a
30,
guy? How old are you?
I'm
Like
39.
40?
I'm
Yeah,
39.
39, 40. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
I only did that. I didn't do that from your look. I did that from the math of being a freshman, by the way, when the
Right.
freshman came out. You're welcome.
You're probably thinking this guy's probably lying to me about being a freshman.
Yeah, man.
But well, and real
Cool.
quick, I mean, you just had an album come out last year, Threads. What's next for the Verve Pipe?
We're shooting a video this week, which is great, off of a song called "Save Me." It's a really fun song off the new record, super rocking and fun. It's all about how my neighbors do drugs, and we live in a very cool, fun neighborhood, suburbia, fairly affluent, and I mean, in a manageable way. Not super rich area, but how everybody gets together and they all party really heavily. And even though we all have kids in school and everything, and it's a lot of fun. So we're doing a video about that this week. And then, there's no new music coming out, but we've got this tour with Five for Fighting coming up this summer, which is a big deal. So it'll be nice to get out with those guys again and just staying on the road as much as possible until the new album is written.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, best of luck with everything. Stay safe. Thank you again. I can't say thank you enough for doing this for me. It's such an honor to, like I said, talk to you. It's so weird. I never thought, as a freshman in high school, I'd ever be talking to the guy who sang the Freshman, when
Nice.
I'm nearly 40. So
Thanks, man.
the
Well,
internet's
thanks
a
for
crazy
having me.
place. Yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, best of luck.
All right. Thanks, brother.
Awesome.
See you
Thanks.
later. Bye.
See ya.